Welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Jessica with Turn the Page podcast at Syosset Library, and I am really excited to introduce or to have my special guest introduce herself. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, guys. My name is Ngozi Ukazu, and I am the writer and illustrator and creator of Check Please,
Which is a really, really cool graphic novel. It started as a webcomic, I believe.
Yeah, I launched it as a webcomic in 2013, worked on it all during grad school at the Savannah College of Art and Design, and did a few self-publishing Kickstarters. Then it got picked up by a publisher, by Macmillan and First Second. So that's why it's going to be in bookstores this April.
Very cool. And Check Please. So what inspired you to write Check Please? I know that there's like a whole foreword in the book, which I highly recommend the book. It's awesome. But in your own words, what inspired you to write Check Please?
Yeah, Check Please for me started off kind of like as a spiritual successor to a screenplay that I wrote my senior year in college. That story was about a hockey player who falls in love with his best friend, and it explores queer narratives and also just the very fascinating, honestly awesome world of hockey. And when I graduated from college, I wanted to stay in that world, but perhaps with a few lighter themes. And so I started Check Please. And it's the story where my main character, Eric Biddle, is this little gay kid from Madison, Georgia, who goes to play hockey in Massachusetts. And it's not just exploring themes of coming out and queer themes, but also just found family themes, male-dominated sports, and also being in college and what it means to really find yourself during your 4 years at college.
So were you a hockey fan before you started writing Check Please, or before you started writing your screenplay, or did you kind of delve into it more so?
I would say that writing that screenplay made me a hockey fan. I am a Black woman from Texas, and that's not really the demographic for hockey. But when I decided to write the screenplay, my professor really recommended that I just totally inundate myself in the culture. And by the end of 3 months of that class and that semester, I just was totally a convert. It's really a crazy sport, and it can seem super exotic to someone like me who was born and raised in Houston, Texas, had only seen snow for the first time in college, Yeah. So yeah, hockey, I just became a fan, and I really wanted to show people like how weird and crazy this sport was. One part of the comic, the webcomic, is that there's this pardon me for some profanity, or maybe I'll censor myself. There's a mini series within the comic, a comic within the comic called Hockey Stuff with Ransom and Holster, and it's basically me kind of winking at the fourth wall, kind of teaching people all the weird stuff that I learned about hockey.
Which is stuff that I had absolutely no clue about. I mean, a lot of my friends are really into hockey, and I know that there's a lot of violence on the
Oh boy, yeah.
And I know people get knocked into walls, but the stuff that you brought up in those little sequences, I mean, it really is very endearing. And so is this, and the story in general is very endearing. So Eric Biddle, and they call him Biddy,
Yes.
He was a figure skater before he came to is it Samuel College?
Yeah, so Eric Biddle, and one thing that you got to know about hockey is that everyone has a nickname. So Biddy, that's his nickname. And it kind of fits because he's kind of small for a hockey player.
Yeah.
He's 5'7", 5'6.5". And he he used to be a figure skater and a very good figure skater, but upon, going to college, he wanted to get a scholarship to go to college. And also he wanted to go to Samwell because it has a reputation for being a very welcoming, safe environment.
Right.
And so he was like, okay, I guess I'll play hockey because he has a little bit of hockey experience. And it's true that Samuel was a very good environment for him, but also that hockey is a very violent sport. So it's kind of like those two things contending with each other. He gets to this college environment, and the bros are very much bros. They end up accepting him, but at the same time, like they're still going to like check you on the ice. So he's terrified. He's terrified of kind of coming out and being himself, but slowly he starts to acclimate to this new environment. And yeah, it's very much a college story.
I was
enjoy.
just going to say that. Yeah, I felt like it was very authentic to the college experience, because a lot of people who, they go away and they want to open up, but it's also a little scary and intimidating. You think you're going to be like, okay, here I am, but it doesn't always start out that way. A lot of it is finding your own voice and figuring out where you fit. And he definitely did a lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's his main arc. That's the main story. Biddy kind of exploring who he is and trying to accept himself while others are accepting him.
So there's also, so he likes to bake. That's another thing
Yes.
about him, which is adorable. And he's a vlogger, a video. He likes to vlog. So that's also his relationship with Jack, who is one of his teammates. And Jack, I found to be, we know very little about Jack's personal life. What we do know, we know from other people, and also just from some really interesting things that you pick up on by watching Jack interact or seeing how he reacts to things. So Jack, I suppose, in your screenplay would have been your main character's best friend who he's crushing on?
The screenplay, so I said the screenplay that I wrote in college, it's pretty different from Check Please. The main character of that screenplay is like this brooding, stoic enforcer type.
Okay, definitely not Biddy.
Different from Biddy. And he's in love with his best friend who used to play hockey, but is like, he doesn't play hockey in college. Okay. So in this story, in Check Please, I would say Jack is someone who is he's hyper focused on hockey. His friends often call him a hockey robot. He is this fallen prodigy. So he's this kid whose dad is known as Bad Bob Zimmerman. Like Jack Zimmerman's dad is like the most well-known like hockey player in this world. And for Jack, kind of living in his father's shadow, he felt the pressure growing up, and he really felt that if he didn't meet his dad's accomplishments or exceed them, that he'd be totally a failure. And so Jack's story is that, we kind of hear it from the other characters. Jack's story is that he had to stop playing hockey for a bit because he dealt with a lot of anxiety and had a bit of a difficult situation. And he goes to Samwell to try to rebuild. And that's where he meets Biddy, and he's at a place where he is I think he's really frustrated with himself still, and frustrated with what he wants to do with hockey. So when he meets this like bubbly, baking, blogging Biddle from Georgia, he's just like, why are you on this team? Why aren't you taking this seriously? And he's kind of mean to Biddy.
Yeah,
but
he's very
mean. But slowly, as we see what Biddy's about, and as Jack learns about him and they learn about each other, not only does a friendship grow, something else grows. And that's another through line in the story, them kind of leaning on one another and encouraging one another.
I thought that was really well done. And I do think, there were some, panels and some scenes where you really portrayed Jack's anxiety beautifully.
Oh.
It was really just very clear that he was anxious, and just you could tell from the facial expressions or just some of the lines that he around his body that he was shaking. It was really just a very well done portrayal of somebody who's experiencing and trying to keep their personal anxiety in check. Please.
Yeah, Jack, please, pun intended. Yeah, I did a lot of research when it came to anxiety, drawing from my own life, drawing from friends' lives, reading just about how it affects different people. And with Jack, I wanted to make sure, and a lot of, and it's always pleasant to hear this. A lot of readers say that they identify with Jack because of his anxiety, and I wanted to show that despite or in spite or alongside his anxiety, he's still a hockey player. He's still an athlete, and it's okay for him to have weaker moments when his anxiety is at the forefront. But at the end of the day, he's still an athlete. He's a hockey player, and that doesn't change that at all.
There's also just the idea of expectations. I mean,
Yes.
And I think that for Biddy, I mean, there's like almost like, I don't want to say no expectations, but he has expectations about other but hockey is almost like, fresh slate, and he kind of begins to come into it. And Jack is sometimes less encouraging when he he could be.
I would say for Jack and Biddy, they're both playing this game of kind of like male expectations, what they think their fathers want from them.
Right.
And when they actually start to interrogate that by asking like the men in their lives, and that's the people in their lives, like what is actually expected of me, everything kind of falls apart. With Jack, it's all about hockey. It's all about succeeding with hockey. And with Biddy, it's kind of this idea of being strong and being a bro. One of the comics that so as a webcomic, I've actually published a lot of the story online, but the very end of the comic will be like the readers will first see it in book form in bookstores. For if any of the listeners are familiar with the comic, it follows Biddy through his 4 years in college, so freshman, sophomore, senior year. In 2018, the first Check Please volume, which was a compilation of the online comic, captured his freshman and sophomore years. And in April, we get to see his junior and senior years and find the very end of his story, the conclusion to his story. But I've been sharing the comic online. It's online for free. And during his junior year, I got to draw this comic that was no spoilers, but Biddy gets recognized. And in the sequence, he's kind of monologuing about how this team has helped him. And there's a sequence where he gets checked, which is his great phobia, his Achilles heel. He falls down and he's shaking, but he's able to get back up, and he's monologuing over that, saying that this team has helped him become strong and it has helped him to find strength in exactly who he is. And I think that's the point of the story. It's about finding strength in who you are and not trying to live up to other people's expectations.
And that definitely comes through in not just Biddy, but also I believe in Jack. So some of the side characters. So the manager of the team,
Lardo, Larissa Dwan. Her nickname is Lardo.
So where did you draw her from?
But Lardo. Yeah, I can almost name the characters that are the people in my life who she's a mixture of. And what I wanted to kind of as the story grows and grows year and year, the team becomes less white and less male. I try to add more and more characters of color, and also the new manager is also female as well.
Right.
And my goal here is just to shake up what a hockey team actually looks like. Lardo is this incredibly petite Asian girl from Boston who is an art major. She's a total bro. I mean, she blends in perfectly. Biddy actually assumes, because she's gone during Biddy's first semester, so he just assumes that she's a guy, because everyone says, oh yeah, Lardo used to beat all of us at beer pong. Yeah, Lardo's crazy, can crush 1,000 beers. So Biddy just assumes that
That
Lardo is
she's this
this.
hulking,
Yeah,
this hulking white dude.
yeah. But when he meets her, it's like, oh, you're a little bit like me. You're not the typical hockey player
Right.
or hockey person. And I don't know. It's always fun writing her because she's so dry, and I love writing a type of broy girl who can definitely hang with the guys.
Yeah, she was a lot of fun to read as well. So what is the next book called?
So the next book, book 2, is called Check Please, Sticks and Scones, because I love puns.
So, well,
And
I noticed before when I made my pun that you appreciated it right away.
yes,
So, Sticks and Scones, and that covers his junior and senior year
yeah.
of college. Is that the last in the Check Please story, or do
And
you think?
it's the last. And it's so funny because readers are like, wait a minute, that can't be it. And I was just like, no, I've been saying this for years. The story ends when he graduates.
So what would you be working on next? Do you have any projects in mind after we get the conclusion of the Check Please story?
Yeah, I'm actually we're already pretty far in on a softball story. Me and my friend Madeline Rupert, who does a web comic called Sakuna, she's drawing this comic and I'm illustrating it. And it's about, like, here's my pitch, pun intended.
Ha!
Uh, it's about art students who must win one game of softball in order to get academic scholarships. I'm kind of pitching it as like Art School Confidential meets League of Their Own.
I love it.
Yeah, I hope it's really fun. Mad is a fantastic artist. Her style is so expressive and cartoony, and I will tell you that even though they only have to win one game, uh, it, even that might be impossible. So we'll see. You gotta. It should be done. I don't know. It should be out in a few years. We're just getting started on drawing it.
That's very exciting. So aside from hockey, are you a sports fan? Are you a softball fan? Is there any particular sport that you follow?
I love sports. Right now I'm mostly just a runner, and which is such an interesting sports world. I only really follow Mary Kay, and that's the only like runner I know, and maybe Mo Farah, all those guys. But I love basketball. That's kind of my first love when it comes to the narrative of sports. Just because, oh my goodness, the NBA in particular is just wild. There's always something happening. I do believe that for me, there's something that resonates in the hero's journey of all the superstars. Um, yeah, it's and the funny thing about sports is that as compelling as it is as a non-fictional thing, it's very hard to convert that into narrative. It's threading a needle.
Yeah, I think but sports graphic novels and sports stories I mean there's definitely an audience for them, like regardless
And
of gender, regardless
yeah,
of race. I
in
mean,
Japan,
yeah.
it's huge. They've really figured out how to tell sports stories that
Yeah.
appeal to
Oh,
everybody.
sports manga and sports anime is
It's massive. It's massive.
huge. Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any like when you draw, are there any comic books that you like? I mean, I'd ask if you have any influences specifically. Like what did you read growing up?
Oh yeah, I mean, when it comes to specific influence for check plays and sports, I was looking at My Hero Academia, like Boku no
Which
Academia,
is great.
which is fantastic and has a lot of really good action. The way like Horikoshi draws, he uses the line work really efficiently to make action. I also looked at Haikyuu because that's really good sports action. That's a volleyball manga.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and like I guess just growing up, I grew up watching the Bruce Timm animated series, which were like Batman, the Animated Adventures, and Superman, the Animated Adventures, Justice League. all of those really influenced a lot of how I draw still to this day. And oh my goodness, I'm realizing like I watched a lot of sitcoms too. So even though I read a lot of comics, a lot of my media diet is like Frasier and The Simpsons. And it kind of is why I'm so obsessed with any comic I make is really about found family.
Yeah.
In terms of style, though, anime and manga really influenced my artwork. I love Chris Samnee. He's my favorite American comic book artist. I don't know, him and Sanford Green are probably tied because Sanford has really good action in his work. But yeah, I can go on and on. There's like so many.
It's tough to.
Yeah.
It's really tough. I mean, you know, I when I was younger, I liked a lot of comic books and I liked a lot of manga. Manga was a little bit more difficult to come by. Now it's literally everywhere. You used to have to go yeah, seriously. You used to have to go to the back of the comic book store where everything was dusty to find manga, and you weren't really sure what you were going to be picking up when you picked it up. Now there's a lot, you know, there's rating systems and there's a lot of just content out there, and it's pretty great. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's just, it kind of comes through. There's a lot of beautiful colors. There's a lot of, you know, the expressions of the characters, and they're just adorable. I just want to hug all of them, even the broiest of the bros.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thanks again, Ngozi, for talking to us. I absolutely cannot wait to read Sticks and Scones. I am going to wait to get my hands on the hard copy. I know I could read ahead.
I think it's a good experience to sit down with the comic and read it. Yeah, that way.
Me as well. I wanted to once again thank you for speaking to us on Turn the Page podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
This is Jessica, and our guest was
Ngozi Ukazu.
And we're going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.